Hello my dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. Today I've got another book talk video for you guys, and we're going to be talking about Crying for the Moon by Mary Walsh. Now, I picked this book up kind of on a whim the other day when I saw it, because I thought, Mary Walsh, is that the Mary Walsh? Now, for anyone who likes comedy in Canada, you're probably familiar with the name Mary Walsh. And for any Newfoundlander that might be watching, you're certainly familiar with Mary Walsh. She is one of the creators of the very successful, very funny TV show This Hour Has 22 Minutes. That was her and Rick Mercer for the longest time, and it's a lot of political satire and social commentary, and it's a hilarious show. And I know her from that, as well as a host of other things. She's a very smart, very funny woman. And I picked up the book, and lo and behold, yes, it was that Mary Walsh. Now, this is her debut novel. I didn't know much about it. I just kind of grabbed it because I wanted to see what Mary Walsh was writing about. Now, I thought maybe it was going to be a comedy because, of course, as I said, she's a comedian, very talented one, but it is not. Crying for the Moon is the story of a young girl named Maureen, and she's from Newfoundland. She lives in St. John's down on Princess Street with her family, and at the beginning of the book, her and her class, she goes to a Catholic school, and a Catholic all-girls school, and she joins the school choir so that she can go to the 1967 Montreal Expo. Because she can't sing at all, but she wants to get out of town for a while. So she joins, and she goes, and while she's there, a couple things happen. One, her and her friend Carlene end up going out and getting themselves into some trouble down in a bar, and Carlene ends up not even returning to Newfoundland with the choir, and once Maureen gets home, she realizes that she's pregnant. So her pregnancy carries on, and then once the baby is born, her mother sort of intervenes, and the baby's put up for adoption, even though that's not what Maureen wants. She doesn't even get to see the baby. She doesn't know if it's a boy or a girl. The baby's just taken away. And that kind of sets her on the path for all the things that follow. So that kind of sets her on the path for the next bit of her life. The baby's gone. She doesn't know who has it. And she's just haunted by it. And so a part of this story is how the choices, the split-second choices that we make in our lives can carry consequences for the entirety of the rest of it. And because of that whole situation that happened, now Maureen's she kind of doesn't care. She's in a dark sort of place. She gets a boyfriend that is he's terrible to her. He's abusive physically. He's an alcoholic. He's tangled up in some really bad criminals that deal drugs and do all kinds of other sorts of things. And so as all this is happening, I'm not entirely sure where the story's going. So, you know, the baby and putting it up for adoption, that all happens very early on. And then I'm just kind of like, well, what's going to happen now? Like, where is this story going? There's still quite a bit of tale to tell. And then the story takes a turn, and it becomes a murder mystery. You see, what happened is Maureen, one day after she had taken a beating worse than all the previous beatings, she decides that she's had enough. And she sees a bottle of poison that was left over from an exterminator who had come a while back. And she takes it and she puts it in the orange juice, and she sprinkles some on leftover pizza in the fridge and things like that. And then she leaves. And then the next day, her boyfriend turns up dead. So she's like, oh no, like, I did that. But not so fast. Then we find out that his body was actually found away from the house in the trunk of a car. And so she's thinking to herself, like, no, like, if I had poisoned him, he certainly wouldn't have, like, he would have died there. He wouldn't have then gone, somehow got in a trunk and just died in there. So then it becomes a sort of unraveling of trying to find out who did it and why and what's going to happen to Maureen, because she, of course, is suspect number one. And in time, the police do find, because, you know, her apartment is a crime scene, so the police eventually do find that the orange juice has been poisoned, as well as food in the fridge. And so it does get to be a bit of a mystery in that way, and it's fun. And there are parts of this book that are funny, even though, you know, describing the events to you, you know, it's dark, but the way she writes it, it's biting sometimes, and it's very funny. And I loved reading about places around St. John's, and I loved reading the dialogue, because she wrote the dialogue the way that Newfoundlanders would speak to each other. And there's just something comforting about the whole thing, about hearing or reading people in a book talking like that. So I had a lot of fun with that. And yeah, there are parts that are pretty funny. The storyline in general, of course, not funny, but definitely some really funny parts. And yeah, so here's where, if you have not read the book and you intend to, you might want to cut it off, because I'm going to go on now and tell the ending of the book for those that I know like to listen to hear the story. So here's your warning. And alright, so she befriends a man that works at the library, and she confides in him that she had done this. She had poisoned the juice in the pizza, and she must have killed him. And so this man, he decides he's going to help her, and they become really good friends. Even though she, as wounded as she is, she doesn't trust him. She doesn't trust his motives. She thinks he wants something from her, but eventually she does come to trust him, because he proves that, you know, he can be trusted. So they get to the bottom of the case. They find out who did it. She somehow manages to sort of manipulate the man that she thinks did it, because, so like I said earlier, her boyfriend, he was involved with drug dealers and all kinds of just shady criminals, and like they had all grown up together, so she knew these people, so she was kind of able to sort of manipulate one into confessing, because her boyfriend had been tormenting this guy's brother. So he, in an act of retaliation, put him in the trunk and left him there, not thinking it would kill him, but rather thinking that he'd just sort of, you know, be locked in a trunk for a bunch of hours. So once that all comes to light, then the police are like, okay, but that doesn't explain why there's poison in the juice. And then in a stroke of brilliance, she says, oh my God, and he was trying to kill me too? So she tries to turn it on the fact that, like, oh, I can't believe it, he was trying to poison me. And at first, and all the way through, the cops really aren't buying that. They're like, okay. But in the end, they really don't have any choice but to believe her, because they've got the man who killed him. So, and then it ends with Maureen traveling to where she has found out that her baby is living. So we don't really know what she's going to do when she gets there, but she needs the closure of going and seeing for herself this child. And, you know, maybe once she gets there, they won't let her, but she needs to make the journey, and then we're kind of just left with her as she's leaving to go. I thought that was a nice fitting ending, a nice way to kind of bring the beginning back to the end. And yeah, it was a good story. I read it in just a couple days, because the way it's written, you can't put it down. You're wondering what's going to happen, where is this going, and yeah, it was just really fun read. And Mary Walsh she's very talented. I can't wait to see what book she puts out next, and I hope it keeps with the theme of taking place in St. John's, Newfoundland, because there's just something so special about that. And it's, you know, it's a very colorful setting for a book. And yeah, I think she did a great job. So before I go real quick, I just want to get a couple of shout outs in here. These are two channels that I love watching, both run by beautiful, wonderful women. And the first is Faye Blatcher. She is an absolute sweetheart. She's so supportive, so kind, so lovely. She does hauls and makeup looks. Definitely go and check her out. I will leave her link down in the description below. And the second one is her name is EJ Chris. She does really great makeup reviews, really informative. She uses the product, gives you her full review, and a lot of times I find that our opinions sort of line up on what we thought of products, so I really enjoy seeing her videos, and I trust, if it's a product I haven't tried, I trust that I will probably feel the same way that she did, and so whether it's a recommendation or not, I definitely take it to heart. So I'm going to be putting her channel down in the description bar below. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I will see you on Monday. I'm going to be posting a review of the spring collection from Kale Polish, and I'm very excited about that. So yeah, hope your weekend's great. Hope the sun is shining. It's nice and beautiful and warm here finally, and I'm loving it. Bye guys.